I never thought I'd be the kind of guy to get blindsided like this, but here I am. My name's Mike, and I've been married to Emily for about 7 years now. We met in college. She was smart, sassy, a bit bitchy, but charming enough that I fell for her hard. Our relationship started off great, lots of laughter, late-night talks, plans for a future. We moved into a nice apartment downtown, got a dog, the usual stuff. Honestly, I thought I had it made. But over the last year or so, something started to feel off. Emily was always busy. She's a project manager at a consulting firm, so her schedule's hectic, but it was more than that. She'd come home late, sometimes smelling different, more like perfume than her usual perfume. She'd be snappier, less patient with me. I brushed it off. Maybe work stress, I told myself. Then came the little things, missing phone calls when I wasn't around, her being overly defensive when I'd ask about her day. I caught her deleting messages on her phone once or twice, and I didn't think much of it at first. Everyone's entitled to their privacy, right? But then I started noticing her spending more time on her laptop in the evenings. She'd stay up late, and I'd hear her giggle at her screen or see her blush when she thought I wasn't looking. I'd see her texting frantically, sometimes her fingers flying across her phone with a little too much secrecy. I'd ask her what she was doing, and she'd wave me off, say it's just work stuff or some friend from her old college days catching up. I bought it, initially. I mean, I really wanted to trust her. I loved her. But I couldn't shake this gnawing feeling that something was wrong. I started snooping. I hated myself for it, but I had to know. One night I decided to check her email, just a peek. That's when I saw the emails, the ones she'd forgotten to delete, with headers about meetings, climate adaptation, urban heat island mitigation, and roof garden assessments. At first, I was confused. I thought maybe she was working on some environmental project, which she's always been passionate about. But then I noticed the names. There was Jake, Tom, some guy she kept referring to as her partner in crime during those late-night calls. My stomach sank. That's when I clicked open one of the emails and everything changed. There were detailed plans for rooftop gardens, but what struck me was how often they jotted down schedule private meeting, discuss new ideas or temperature reduction strategies, all code for their little secret rendezvous. I scrolled further, and there it was, text from her, asking to meet for work. But really, I knew better now. Emily was sneaking off to meet this Jake guy, an engineer working on urban heat island mitigation projects, supposedly helping cities cool down. But those meetings, they weren't about the climate. They were about her and Jake getting their freak on in some rooftop garden during supposed assessment visits. I felt sick. My hands were trembling as I read her texts, her excuses about work stress, client meetings, just business, all bullshit. I had been stupid, trusting her, thinking she was just busy with her career. But then that email trail made it crystal clear. She lied to my face for months. Those climate meetings were cover stories for secret sexcapades. The worst part, the way she's been bitchy and dismissive lately, ignoring me, snapping at me like I was an obstacle to her new adventures. I thought I knew her, but I was living with a stranger. I sat there in the dark, feeling like my whole world was crumbling. The betrayal hit hard. I've been cheated on before, but this felt different. It's one thing to get dumped or to find out she was with someone else after a fling, but this was calculated, sneaky, and it involved a lie I had bought into for years. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I kept looking at her messages, trying to figure out what the hell I did wrong, how I missed all the signs. I was furious, hurt, and confused, and I knew I had to confront her, but I wasn't sure how. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding head and a stomach that felt like I'd swallowed a rock. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. I had to confront her, but I also needed a plan, something that would give me the upper hand. I couldn't just blow up and accuse her without evidence. That wouldn't get me anywhere. No, I had to be strategic. I spent the day trying to keep my cool. Emily was already acting weird, more bitchy, snapping at me over little things, avoiding eye contact. She brought up dinner plans like everything was normal, but I could see that fake smile she threw on when she looked my way. I kept my head clear, pretending to be oblivious while I gathered my thoughts. I decided I'd wait until she got home and then lay everything out, but I couldn't just do that without some backup. something to make her realize I knew what she was up to. When she finally walked through the door around 7 p.m., she looked exhausted, like she'd been running a marathon. I could see the faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers, fresh, a little sweet maybe from her latest rendezvous. She tossed her bag on the couch and tried to act casual. I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I pointed directly at her, my voice steady but cold. "I know about Jake," I said, watching her face fall. Her eyes widened like I'd punched her in the gut, then quickly masked it with an annoyed expression. "Jake, what are you talking about?" "Mike, you're being paranoid," she shot back, brushing past me into the kitchen like I was wasting her time. "No, I'm not. I found your emails, the plans, the appointments. You've been meeting him, haven't you? During work hours in rooftop gardens, pretending you're doing some climate project but really fucking your partner in crime." Her face twisted into something ugly. She spun around and snapped. "You've got no right to accuse me of anything. Maybe you're just jealous I'm busy doing something I care about. Maybe I'm tired of your constant accusations and mistrust." I felt my blood boiling. How could she be so brazen? Her lies, her dismissiveness, her bitchy attitude, it all clicked into place. I was sick of her bullshit, her excuses, her manipulations. I told her straight, "I caught your messages. You think I don't know what you're really doing? Those climate meetings are just covers for your little sexcapades. And if you think I'm going to sit here and be your fool, you're dead wrong." She scoffed and rolled her eyes, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. She crossed her arms and tried to act like she was the victim. "You're overreacting, Mike. It's not what you think. I've been faithful. I just have a lot on my plate, that's all. You're making a big deal out of nothing." I stepped closer, voice low and firm. "Nothing, seriously. You lied to my face for months. You've been sneaking around, meeting him in secret, and you expect me to just accept that. I saw the emails, Emily. I know about the rooftop garden meetings, the temperature reduction assessments. Those were cover stories for your little affair. How long has this been going on? When did I become so blind?" Her eyes darted away, and for a second she looked like she might crack. Then she snapped back. "You don't know what you're talking about. This is all just, you're crazy, Mike. I don't need this. I'm done explaining myself to someone who doesn't trust me anymore." That was the moment I realized she wasn't going to admit anything easily. Her face was full of defiance, her words dripping with contempt. I felt a strange mixture of heartbreak and rage. I'd always believed in us, in our life together. And now, I wasn't sure I recognized her anymore. I told her to leave, told her I needed space to think. She threw a fit, calling me paranoid, accusing me of spying and invading her privacy. But I didn't care. I knew the truth, and I wasn't going to let her manipulate her way out of it. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the wall, replaying everything. The betrayal cut deep. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the lies, the deception, the way she had turned into this bitchy, dismissive version of herself. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. I'd got my evidence, and I knew I couldn't stay in this marriage without some serious consequences. I needed to think about my next move because I was hurt, but I was also furious enough to burn everything down if that's what it took to make her pay. Over the next few days, I stayed away from her as much as possible, trying to gather my thoughts and emotions. Honestly, every time I saw her, my blood started boiling all over again. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, thinking she was just busy with work, when she was out screwing some engineer she met through her climate adaptation projects. The worst part, she's so damn good at lying, spinning stories that I almost wanted to believe her. Almost, but I knew better now. I had the proof and I was planning my next steps. One evening I decided I couldn't keep quiet anymore. If she thought she could manipulate her way out of this, she was dead wrong. I had to hit back, but smart. I needed to make her realize I wasn't just some fool to be played with. I spent hours digging through her computer, her phone, and even her social media, anything that could give me leverage or show her true colors. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just angry. I was calculating, serious, and ready to take control. The more I looked, the angrier I got. She'd been so dismissive, so bitchy and dismissive, like I was just some guy she used to care about. And her excuses, oh, she'd throw out those work stress stories, the "I'm too busy" bullshit, like I was supposed to believe her. But now I knew better. I knew about Jake, her secret meetings, the rooftop garden rendezvous. They weren't about saving the environment or her career. They were about her cheating, plain and simple. I decided I'd confront her again, but this time differently. I wanted to catch her in the act, get definitive proof, and then hit her with everything. I knew her schedule. She'd be out at some urban heat island mitigation seminar during the day, supposedly. I planned to set a trap. I convinced her I was going to a buddy's place for a barbecue, but I stayed back, hiding in the shadows of our apartment, phone recording every move. Sure enough, around noon, she slipped out with her purse, heading out like she had a meeting. I followed from a distance, keeping my distance but keeping her in sight. She got into her car, and I watched her drive to a building downtown I recognized from her email trails. My heart pounded. I took a few photos from a safe spot, her getting into an elevator with someone I recognized from her emails as Jake. She was meeting him again, just like I suspected. It was all happening so fast, my mind racing. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't in a rush. I wanted her to realize I was onto her, that I knew the truth. So I waited until she came back, and when she did, I was already waiting for her in the living room, my phone recording. The moment she walked in, she saw me sitting on the couch with a calm, cold stare. She froze, then tried to brush past me like nothing had happened, but I was ready. "Who were you with today, Emily?" I asked, voice steady but firm. She looked surprised for a second, then her bitchy smirk returned. "None of your business," she snapped. "I was out running errands." "Wrong," I said, showing her the photos I took. "You were with Jake, weren't you, the engineer from your climate project, the rooftop garden meetings? That's who you met today, right?" Her face twisted into one of pure anger. "Oh, so now you're spying on me? That's pathetic, Mike. You really think I'll fall for your crazy accusations?" I shook my head slowly. "No, Emily, I think you're finally seeing that I'm not as stupid as you thought. You've been lying to me this whole time, hiding your affair, lying about your work. But I have the proof now, and I'm done being your fool." Her eyes darted around, trying to come up with an excuse, a lie, anything, but I was already prepared. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and kept my voice calm. "Why don't you tell me the truth? How long has this been going on? Since when did you start sneaking around with Jake?" She was seething now, her face bright red. "You don't get to control me, Mike. I'll do what I want. You're just jealous because I'd rather be with someone who actually cares about me and my work than some insecure, paranoid husband." I felt like I'd been punched. Her words didn't even sting anymore. They just confirmed everything I already knew. She'd spun this story like I was the villain, like her cheating was justified because I wasn't good enough. But I wasn't going to let her get away with it anymore. "Look, Emily," I said, voice low and deadly, "I don't want to be with someone who cheats, who lies to my face. You've been disrespecting our marriage, our vows, everything we built, so I've made my decision. This ends now." She stared at me, eyes blazing with fury, but I could see the cracks in her facade. She knew she'd been caught. The game was over. And honestly, I felt a strange sense of relief, like I finally saw her for who she really was, and I didn't have to keep pretending. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had the power to take control of my life again. That night, after she stormed out of the apartment, I sat alone in the living room, replaying everything. Her betrayal, the lies, her bitchy attitude. Honestly, I'd never been so angry or hurt in my life. But amidst the chaos, a strange clarity started to set in. I realized I'd been a fool to trust her so blindly. All those years, I'd believed in the fairy tale and our happy marriage. But she'd been planning her escape, sneaking around with Jake, using her work as a cover for her infidelity. I knew confrontation alone wouldn't fix this, but I also knew I had to do something to make her understand she couldn't keep manipulating me. The next move had to be decisive. I started planning how to get her out of the apartment quietly, how to secure my own future. I wasn't about to let her walk all over me, not anymore. The following morning I acted. I called a lawyer friend, got some advice on how to handle the separation and what my rights were. I also started gathering more evidence, screenshots, text logs, photos from my stakeout. I didn't want to just dump her and let her walk away with everything. I was determined to make her feel the consequences of her betrayal, to show her I wasn't going to be a pushover. I also made the decision to hire a private investigator. I didn't trust her to be honest about her movements or who she was still seeing. Better to have concrete proof, especially if she started spinning her own story to friends or family. I wanted her to know I was serious about exposing her. That day I watched her pack her bags, her bitchy face full of attitude like she was doing me a favor. She kept throwing sarcastic comments, saying things like, "You're overreacting, Mike. You'll regret this." I just smiled coldly, not giving her the satisfaction of seeing how much she'd hurt me. When she left, I immediately started the process of changing the locks, securing the apartment, and notifying the building management that she was no longer allowed inside without my permission. I also reached out to some close friends, telling them everything and asking for emotional support. I knew I'd need it. Late that evening, I sat alone again, feeling a mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to call her, to tell her off, to dump every anger I'd been bottling up. But I knew that wouldn't help. Instead, I focused on my next steps, getting legal advice, making sure I protected myself financially, and figuring out how to move forward. I'd lost my wife, yes, but I wasn't going to let her take everything from me. I was pissed, betrayed, but also stronger than I'd ever thought I could be. That night, lying in bed, I finally allowed myself to feel the pain, the betrayal, the heartbreak. But beneath it all, I knew this was a turning point. A shitty, unexpected, brutal lesson. Trust no one blindly, especially not someone who shows you their true colors when you least expect it. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I knew I'd be okay. I had to be. Over the next few weeks, everything changed. I threw myself into organizing everything: legal papers, finances, moving out, even counseling sessions to help me process what had happened. The hardest part wasn't just the betrayal itself, but how easily she'd lied, spun stories, and tried to manipulate her way out of it. Every time I thought about how she dismissed my feelings, called me paranoid and crazy, I felt a mix of anger and disgust. One thing I realized during this period was how much her attitude had shifted. She became even more bitchy, trying to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. On the phone, she'd argue that the whole thing was just a misunderstanding, that I was blowing things out of proportion, and that I was jealous because she was successful. It was classic deflection, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I saw her for what she truly was: selfish, manipulative, and utterly unfaithful. I also found out she was trying to spin her own version of events to friends and family, saying I was paranoid, that I was controlling, that I'd lost my mind. That really pissed me off. It was her way of saving face, but I knew the truth and I had the evidence to back it up. I started sharing bits with a few close friends, not to ruin her reputation, but just to have some support because this shit was exhausting. Meanwhile, I was also dealing with the emotional fallout. I felt betrayed on every level: my trust, my love, my sense of security. The worst part: knowing she'd been lying to me all this time, pretending to be someone she was. I'd always thought we had a solid future, that we were in it together. But that illusion shattered in an instant. Every memory I had with her haunted me, knowing she'd been sneaking behind my back, having sex with another man under the guise of climate assessments. I decided I was done waiting for her to come back, to apologize, or to own up. I knew I had to cut her out completely to start healing. So I sent her a final message, a clear, no-nonsense letter telling her that I knew the truth, that I was filing for divorce, and that I didn't want to hear from her again. I also told her that her behavior was unacceptable and that I wouldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I wanted her to see I was serious. That message felt like the final nail in the coffin. After I sent it, I felt a strange sense of relief mixed with sadness. I'd lost a partner I thought I knew, but I also gained clarity. I realized I deserved someone who respected me, someone who didn't lie and cheat. I'd been a fool for trusting her blindly. From now on, I'd learned to trust myself more. The hardest part was letting go of the idea of what I thought we had, what I had hoped for. But I knew deep down that this was best for me. I couldn't keep living in a lie, pretending everything was normal when it was. The betrayal had opened my eyes, and I was finally ready to move on, to rebuild my life one step at a time. I didn't know exactly what was ahead, but I knew I'd be better off without her. That was the real lesson I took from all of this. In the weeks that followed, I focused on reclaiming my life. I got a new place, moved out of that apartment, anywhere I could start fresh, away from the pain and memories. It was tough, no doubt about it. Every morning was a reminder of what I'd lost, and every night I'd lie in bed replaying the betrayal, wondering how I missed all the signs for so long. But slowly I started to rebuild my confidence piece by piece. I also learned something crucial. Trust is fragile and it can shatter in an instant. But that doesn't mean I have to let it define me. I realized that I was better off without someone who only brought me pain, lies, and betrayal. The anger I felt initially transformed into a quiet, steady resolve. I needed to heal, not just physically but emotionally. I sought therapy and leaned on friends who reminded me of my worth. It was embarrassing at first to admit I'd been played, but I knew I couldn't hide forever. Looking back, I see how naive I was to believe everything was perfect. Emily was charming, witty, and seemingly loving, but beneath that veneer was someone willing to lie, cheat, and manipulate. I learned to see the red flags earlier with future relationships. To listen to my gut. Trust isn't given blindly anymore, not unless I see consistent honesty. I also realized I'd been chasing an ideal that was never real. The comfort, the happily ever after, it was all a facade. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her deceit, they were all signs I ignored for too long. I wish I could go back and tell myself to wake up sooner, to see what was really happening. But I also understand that some lessons hurt so much that they change you forever. Now, I'm at a point where I can say I'm genuinely okay. I still feel the sting of betrayal, but it's not controlling me anymore. I look at my life and realize I've gained a new perspective, one about trusting, about valuing myself, and about not settling for someone who doesn't respect me. I've forgiven myself for the naivety and the pain, and I've learned to move forward with a cautious but hopeful heart. To anyone reading this who's going through something similar, remember, it's okay to feel broken, to be angry, to cry. But don't let that pain define you. You deserve honesty, loyalty, respect. Trust again when you're ready and never ignore the signs, because sometimes the people you love the most will betray you in ways you never expect. But you'll come out stronger. You always do. Trust your gut, stand firm, and don't let anyone treat you like you're less than you are. Life will go on, and so will you.